Commander Lyra Voss was elbow-deep in engine grease when the news arrived. Her hands buried in the guts of the Intrepid's auxiliary propulsion system, fingers tracing the malfunctioning power coupling that had been giving engineering fits for the past week. The problem was subtle. A hairline fracture in the quantum resonance chamber that wouldn't show up on standard diagnostics, but would absolutely cause a catastrophic failure if they hit full emergency thrust, the kind of problem that required intuition as much as technical knowledge to identify. She was just about to call for a micromolecular welding kit when she sensed the change in the air. New Horizon, humanity's most ambitious colony, pride of the United Earth government and home to over 2 million souls, had gone silent. "Commander!" Her exo-decker stood in the doorway of the engine compartment, his usually animated face frozen in an expression she'd never seen before, a peculiar mixture of shock, disbelief, and something darker. His typically immaculate uniform was rumpled, as if he'd been running. "You need to see this, now." The mess hall had transformed into a makeshift emergency briefing room. 30 crew members of the UNS Intrepid stood in perfect stillness, a tableau of horror as they watched the high-definition satellite footage playing on the main view screen. The images were crisp, clinical in their detail, the methodical annihilation of city after city. First the outlying agricultural districts, then the residential zones, then the central administrative complexes. Not random destruction, but the calculated dismantling of human civilization from the periphery inward. The final desperate transmission from Governor Chen played on a loop. Unknown vessels in orbit, energy signatures off the charts. They came without warning, they're not responding to any communication attempts. Military installations already destroyed, civilian casualties. His voice cracked with emotion before steadying. Civilian casualties catastrophic. Earth, please send. Static, the kind of absolute signal termination that meant not just communications failure, but total infrastructure collapse. 2 million human lives, gone in less than 20 minutes. "Rewind and enhance grid sector A7, Voss ordered, her voice betraying none of the ice crystallizing in her veins. Her hands, still streaked with engine grease, gripped the edge of the tactical console. "Timestamp 447, magnify 300%. "There, what the hell is that?" The AI controlling the display responded instantly. The image zoomed and enhanced, revealing a vessel unlike any in known space. Angular, asymmetrical, with protrusions that seemed to defy conventional aerospace engineering. It didn't reflect light so much as absorb it, creating an outline that seemed to pulse against the backdrop of stars. The design principle wasn't just alien. It suggested beings with a fundamentally different understanding of physics, or perhaps aesthetic. "First contact," muttered Chief Science Officer Xie, her eyes narrowed as she made rapid calculations on her datapad. And they decided to skip the handshake and go straight for the throat. Energy readings are, well, to call them advanced, would be like calling a supernova warm. "We're looking at weapons technology at least 2 generations beyond our most classified prototypes." Lieutenant Kiahi, normally stoic, whispered, Why? Why hit a civilian colony first?" "Because that's what predators do," Voss replied, her gaze never leaving the screen. "They go for the soft targets first, the vulnerable ones." Admiral Kagawa's weathered face appeared on the main screen hours later, the secure quantum channel crackling with interference. Unusual for such advanced technology, the delay in establishing contact wasn't technical. It was emotional. The Admiral's expression confirmed what Voss had already suspected. This wasn't an isolated incident. "Commander Voss," he began, the normally unflappable fleet commander visibly struggling to maintain his composure. "The Security Council has confirmed attacks on 3 other outlying colonies, Proxima Station, New Jakarta, and the Galileo Research Outpost. Total casualties," he paused, swallowing hard. "Total casualties estimated at 2.3 million. No survivors have been detected at any location." The bridge fell silent. Even the usual electronic hums and beeps seemed muted, as if the ship itself was processing the magnitude of the loss. "Do we know who they are?" Voss asked, the question deceptively calm, like the eye of a hurricane. Our deep space monitoring stations intercepted some communications during the attacks. Linguistic division has been working non-stop. They call themselves the Dravari. The Admiral's face hardened. From what little we've translated of their internal communications, they consider the destruction of New Horizon to be, his face twisted in disgust, pest control, a routine clearing operation. There's terminology suggesting this isn't their first such action against other civilizations. Orders, sir? Voss asked, though every cell in her body was already preparing for war. Her mind was running through tactical scenarios, cataloguing the Intrepid's weapon systems, mentally drafting the battle plans that would transform her exploration vessel into an instrument of vengeance. Admiral Kagawa straightened, his military bearing reasserting itself. Return to Earth immediately. All available ships are being recalled. The Security Council is invoking Article 7. The declaration hung in the air. Article 7 had never been activated before, the provision for existential threats to human civilization. Humanity is going to respond, Commander, and you're going to help lead that response. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Plot the fastest course to Earth, Voss ordered, her voice steady. Push the engines beyond safety parameters if necessary. Time is critical. Yes, Commander, Lieutenant Yadin replied from the navigation station, his fingers already dancing across the controls. As the Intrepid changed course and accelerated toward Earth, Voss found herself drawn to the observation deck. The vast emptiness of space stretched before her, pinpricked with the cold light of distant stars. Somewhere out there, the Dravari were probably celebrating their victory, assuming humanity would cower or beg for terms. They have no idea what they've done, she whispered to the stars, the words both promise and prophecy. No idea who they've provoked. No idea what's coming for them. Behind her, the ship's AI, Aria, spoke in measured tones. Its holographic avatar, a shifting pattern of blue light that occasionally coalesced into a vaguely humanoid shape, manifested beside her. Commander, I've completed my analysis of all available data on the attack. The Dravari weapons technology exceeds our current capabilities by approximately 30% in terms of raw destructive power. Their shielding appears to utilize principles we've theorized, but haven't successfully implemented. Voss didn't turn around, her gaze fixed on the endless void. And their understanding of humanity? Their psychological assessment? A pause, longer than Aria's processing speed should have required. Based on their attack pattern, target selection, and subsequent communications, they appear to have made a significant miscalculation. Their tactics suggest they expected immediate capitulation or disorganized, ineffective resistance. Yes, Voss said, a smile devoid of humor crossing her face. It didn't reach her eyes, which remained cold and focused. They certainly have. Earth was a planet transformed when the Intrepid docked at Lunar Station. Gone was the vibrant, optimistic homeworld that had launched humanity's great expansion into the stars. In its place was a sphere of concentrated grief and rage. Memorial holograms floated in every public space, faces of the lost, landscapes of New Horizon before its destruction. Children's drawings recovered from educational databases. The orbital platforms, normally ablaze with advertisements and entertainment feeds, now displayed only the names of the dead, scrolling in a continuous tribute that would take days to complete. Voss had never seen Earth like this, unified in emotion if not yet in purpose. It's different down there, Decker said quietly as they prepared to board the shuttle to Geneva. My sister says people are stockpiling supplies, volunteering for military service in record numbers. The streets are quiet at night. Everyone's glued to the news feeds. They're waiting, Voss replied, checking her dress uniform one last time. For what? For someone to tell them what happens next. For someone to give them hope. She straightened her collar. For someone to give them a way to fight back. The Security Council meeting was already in its 14th hour when Voss was called to testify. The chamber, ordinarily organized along national and corporate lines, had reorganized into a single, unified body. Representatives from every nation on Earth and every colony that remained sat in concentric rings, their faces drawn with exhaustion and a determination that bordered on ferocity. Commander Voss, began the Secretary-General, Ambassador Chiombo of the African Union, you were the first military officer to analyze the initial attack footage. Your preliminary report has been circulated. In your professional opinion, stripped of diplomatic niceties, what exactly are we facing? The chamber fell silent. 200 of the most powerful people in human civilization leaned forward slightly, hanging on her response. Voss stood at the podium, acutely aware that her words would shape history. The Dravari possess superior weaponry, advanced propulsion systems, and apparently no interest whatsoever in diplomatic relations. Their attack pattern was methodical, thorough, and deliberately designed for maximum psychological impact. They targeted civilian infrastructure first, military installations second, and communications systems last, ensuring we would see the destruction unfold but be unable to coordinate a response. So they wanted to cause terror, said the Chinese representative, Ambassador Liu, his voice tight with controlled anger. No, sir, Voss corrected, her gaze sweeping the chamber. They wanted to cause despair. Terror implies there's still hope, the fear of what might happen. They were trying to eliminate hope entirely, to demonstrate such overwhelming superiority that resistance would seem futile. And what would you recommend as a response, Commander? Asked the Brazilian representative, leaning forward with intensity. The question hung in the air. Around the room, Voss could see the divided opinions, those who wanted immediate, overwhelming retaliation, and those who feared precisely that response would lead to humanity's extinction. The Dravari have made a fundamental error in their assessment of our species, Voss said finally, her voice carrying to every corner of the hushed chamber. They believe they understand us based on whatever encounters they've had with other civilizations. But throughout our history, humanity has responded to existential threats not with surrender, but with innovation, not with despair, but with defiance, not with retreat, but with revolution. She paused, letting her words sink in. I recommend we show them exactly who they've attacked. I recommend we build a fleet unlike anything humanity has ever created, incorporating every experimental technology, every theoretical weapon, every scientific breakthrough we've been cautiously developing, and then we take the fight directly to them. A murmur ran through the chamber, not dissent, but the sound of fear transmuting into resolve. And if we fail? Asked the Russian representative, his skepticism evident. Then we fail, knowing we gave everything, Voss replied simply. But we won't fail. After the hearing concluded, Admiral Kagawa found Voss in an antechamber, staring at a hologram of New Horizon. She had zoomed in on a particular neighborhood, mid-sized homes with gardens, a school visible at the edge. Her fingers hovered over one house in particular, not quite touching the blue light. You had family there? Kagawa said. Not a question. My sister Tessa, her husband Mikhail, they're twins, just turned 6. Voss didn't look up, her eyes fixed on the holographic home that no longer existed. They moved there 3 years ago because it was supposed to be the safest colony, best defensive systems, best quality of life. Kagawa sat beside her, his uniform crisp despite the marathon session. I'm assigning you as tactical commander of the response fleet. Now she did look up, surprise breaking through her controlled expression. Sir, there are more experienced officers. Experience isn't what we need right now, Lyra. It was the first time he'd used her first name in their 15 years of acquaintance. We need someone with fire, someone who understands exactly what's at stake. He met her gaze squarely. Someone who has lost enough to make this personal, but not so much that it clouds judgment. When do we leave? First, we build. I want ships that will make the Dravari regret the day they decided humans were easy prey. He stood, his age showing in the stiffness of the movement despite his genetic enhancements. Report to Geneva Complex tomorrow at 600. The project is already underway. We're calling it Operation Vengeance. Subtle, Voss remarked with the ghost of a smile, the first since the news of New Horizon had reached the Intrepid. Humanity isn't feeling particularly subtle right now, Kagawa replied, a dangerous gleam in his eyes. And neither am I. The Geneva complex had been transformed from a diplomatic center into the command hub for the most ambitious military build-up in human history. No pressure or anything, drawled Chief Engineer Mackenzie Rhodes as she led Voss through the main hangar, but we've got approximately 140 years of technological advancement to cram into 6 months. Will 6 months be enough? Voss asked, watching a prototype weapon core being installed. Oh, absolutely not, Rhodes replied cheerfully. That's why we're doing it in 3. The collective trauma had dissolved bureaucratic barriers that would normally have made such rapid development impossible. Nations shared classified technology, corporations opened patent vaults, and theoretical research was fast-tracked to implementation. I call it the singularity drive, said Dr. Imani Okeke, lead physicist. Essentially, it creates a controlled quantum singularity that allows for instantaneous repositioning in space. You invented teleportation? Voss translated, staring at the schematics. I'd call it strategic spatial realignment, but yes, basically we teleport the entire ship. Dr. Okeke grinned. The Dravari are still using primitive warp technology. We'll be running circles around them, literally. Dr. Eli Tran from Weapons Development introduced their offensive capabilities. We're going with disruptors to take down their shields, penetrators to breach their hulls, and a little something special I like to call star in a box for when we really want to make a point. Star in a box? Voss raised an eyebrow. It's a miniaturized fusion reaction that briefly creates stellar-level energy in a controlled area. Dr. Tran explained with unsettling enthusiasm. Turns anything in the blast radius into its component atoms. Then those atoms into their component particles. Is it tested? Voss asked carefully. Define tested, Tran replied. Over the following weeks, Voss assembled her command crew. Lieutenant Commander Zephyr Nasser, tactical officer, had literally written the book on asymmetrical warfare. The Dravari fighting style shows evidence of evolutionary linearity, he explained. They think in straight lines. Attack, counterattack. Humans think in webs. We'll use that. Communications specialist Vivienne Rilette was a linguistic savant who had already made progress translating the Dravari language. They communicate using overlapping frequencies, she explained. What sounds like gibberish is actually 3 or 4 conversations happening simultaneously, and about 40% of their language is comprised of status indicators. They're constantly asserting dominance hierarchies. So they're obsessed with who's in charge, Voss noted. Exactly, which means they'll underestimate any approach that appears to lack central authority. The final key member was Aria, the AI from Intrepid, uploaded into a synthetic body despite Voss's initial objections. The flagship, the UNS Nemesis, took shape with astonishing speed. At 1.5 kilometers long, it dwarfed any previous human vessel. She's beautiful, Voss murmured during the final inspection. And absolutely terrifying, added Rhodes, just like her commander. Launch day arrived with solemn ceremony. 50 ships hovered above Earth, with the Nemesis at their center. Admiral Kagawa addressed humanity. Today, we answer the unprovoked slaughter of millions with a message that will echo across the stars. Humanity will not be extinguished. We will not cower. The fleet engaged their singularity drives simultaneously. Earth vanished from view screens, replaced by the edge of charted space. The first week passed in tense anticipation. Training drills occupied the crew, simulating various encounter scenarios with the enemy. On the 8th day, the fleet encountered a Thalosian trading vessel. The Dravari passed through 3 cycles ago, the alien captain informed them. They expressed satisfaction with their recent conquests. They spoke of humans as if you were already extinct. Good, Voss told her concerned crew afterward. Overconfidence makes them vulnerable. The Dravari think they've encountered a species that will roll over and die when attacked. They're about to learn how wrong they are. Aria approached Voss later. Based on the Thalosians' information, I believe the Dravari may be planning additional attacks on human outposts. Which ones? Research Station Helios and mining colony Cerberus would be the most logical targets. So we either continue to their homeworld or protect our people, Voss considered. We can't split the fleet. We need our full strength for either option. There is a third alternative, Arya suggested. One that statistical analysis indicates the Dravari would never anticipate. Research station Helios hung in orbit around a binary star system. Now, it was about to become a trap. Dravari vessels approaching, NASA reported from Tactical. 5 ships, heavily armed, they're moving into attack formation. Are they scanning us? Voss asked, watching from the Nemesis hidden behind Helios's moon. Negative. They appear completely focused on the research station. NASA shook his head. They really don't expect resistance. Status of evacuation? Voss asked Arya. Complete. All personnel have been transferred. Station is running on automated systems only. The Dravari ships opened fire on Helios. Their blast struck the station's shields that should have collapsed instantly. Instead, they flared brilliantly, absorbing the energy. Confusion in Dravari communications, Retaliate reported. They're questioning their weapons' functionality. Now, Voss ordered. Rhodes activated the surprise package, a modified version of Dr. Tran's technology that reversed the station's shields from defensive to offensive. The absorbed energy surged back outward. 2 Dravari ships disintegrated. A third spun away, crippled. Nemesis, attack pattern Alpha, Voss commanded. All ships, emerge and engage. The human fleet appeared from nowhere as the singularity drives activated. The Dravari, already reeling, found themselves surrounded. They're attempting to communicate, Retaliate reported. The bridge speakers emitted a cacophony that resolved into heavily accented words. Impossible, humans primitive, no resistance capability. Voss opened a channel. This is Commander Lyra Voss of the UNS Nemesis. You attacked our colonies without provocation or warning. You slaughtered millions of innocent civilians. This is your only warning. Surrender or be destroyed. Humans not understand. Inferior species must yield territory, natural order. Fire at will, Voss ordered coldly. The skirmish ended quickly. 4 Dravari ships destroyed, 1 captured, with 0 human casualties. Download everything from their systems, Voss ordered. I want to know where they came from, what their capabilities are, and where the rest of their fleet is headed. The captured Dravari were even more alien in appearance than their ships, tall, chitinous beings with compound eyes that shifted color with their moods. They're expressing confusion, Retaliate reported, after attempting communication. They keep using a term that translates as script deviation. Script deviation? Voss repeated. Arya, analyzing the downloaded data, straightened. The Dravari have encountered 17 other species before humans. In each case, their initial attack strategy, the destruction of outlying colonies, resulted in either immediate capitulation or ineffective resistance they easily overwhelmed. So they thought they knew exactly how we'd respond, Voss realized. Yes, and they've already allocated our territory for colonization. They expected the conquest of humanity to be completed within 6 standard months. A cold smile spread across Voss's face. Then I suppose we'd better introduce them to the concept of schedule adjustments. The captured data proved invaluable. Within hours, Arya had compiled a comprehensive analysis of Dravari fleet positions and strategic doctrines. They operate on a hive mind principle, Voss explained to the assembled commanders. Not true telepathy, but a communication network so integrated that information passes almost instantaneously between all Dravari ships. Which explains their coordination, noted Captain Hiroshi of the UNS Valkyrie. But it also suggests a vulnerability. Exactly, Voss confirmed. Their central command vessel, what they call the Voice of Inevitability, coordinates all operations. If we can isolate or destroy it, the entire fleet will be thrown into disarray. That's their flagship, pointed out Captain Chin of the UNS Chimera. It'll be the most heavily defended vessel in their armada. Direct assault would be suicide. Who said anything about direct? Voss smiled. The plan that emerged was audacious to the point of recklessness. The fleet would divide into 3 task forces, 2 diversionary groups to draw away Dravari forces, while Task Force Omega, led by the Nemesis, would target their command ship. We'll go in cold, Voss explained. Powered down, drifting like space debris, the Dravari will be looking for energy signatures of active ships, not apparently dead vessels. This plan is certifiably insane, Rhodes said bluntly afterward. Drifting into the heart of an enemy fleet, powered down to where we can't even run life support at full capacity. If anything goes wrong, we're space dust. If we don't take this risk, Earth becomes New Horizon, Voss replied quietly. It's our best shot. The Nemesis hung in space, to all appearances a derelict vessel. Life support functioned at minimal levels, the bridge illuminated only by emergency lighting. Current position? Voss asked, her breath visible in the cold air. Approaching outer security perimeter of the Dravari fleet, NASA replied. Task Forces Alpha and Beta have engaged as planned. Dravari forces are responding exactly as predicted. Voice of inevitability status? She asked. Holding position, Aria reported. Security cordon is thinning as they dispatch ships to the diversionary battles. The minutes stretched, as Task Force Omega drifted deeper into enemy territory. Around them, Dravari vessels moved with increasing urgency. They still believe they're in control, Rylet observed, monitoring communications. They're actually mocking us for behaving exactly as they predicted. Perfect, Voss smiled grimly. Approaching optimal firing position, NASA reported. 3 minutes. All hands prepare for system restoration, Voss ordered. Weapons, prioritize targeting the Voice's communication array first, propulsion second. 1 minute, 30 seconds, mark. The bridge erupted into activity as systems surged back to full power. Lights blazed, engines roared, and weapon systems hummed to life. Target locked, firing disruptors. The Nemesis's main batteries unleashed hell upon the unsuspecting Dravari command ship. Simultaneously, the other vessels of Task Force Omega emerged from their dormant state, attacking from multiple vectors. The Voice of Inevitability reeled under the unexpected assault. Its shields, formidable against frontal attacks, had not been configured to repel fire from what appeared to be harmless debris. Direct hits on communication array, NASA reported. They're going silent. The tactical display erupted with new contacts as Dravari ships broke off from the diversionary battles, suddenly aware of the true threat, but the damage was done. With their command network disrupted, their coordination had devolved into individual ships reacting in isolation. They're adapting, Aria warned, reconfiguring their communication protocols. Estimate 3 minutes until partial restoration. Then let's make sure they have nothing to connect to, Voss said. Rhodes, deploy the package. From the Nemesis launched a single projectile that attached to the Voice's hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the Dravari command ship began to glow from within. Bands of energy pulsed along its hull until they connected in a web of blinding light. Star in a box? Asked NASA. A modified version, Voss confirmed. Instead of total destruction, it's systematically frying every electronic system on their ship. The light show ended, leaving the Voice utterly dead in space. Incoming, shouted NASA as the remaining Dravari fleet converged on Task Force Omega with vengeful fury. All Omega ships singularity jump to coordinates Echo 3, Voss ordered. Space twisted as the human fleet reunited at a safe distance. The Dravari are about to learn that losing their head doesn't mean the fight is over, it just means they can't coordinate when we cut off their limbs. The human fleet split into smaller, rapidly moving strike teams, attacking from multiple vectors simultaneously. The Dravari, used to facing enemies who fought as a single force, struggled to prioritize their defense. Their ships are isolating, Aria observed. Each vessel is now fighting as an individual unit, rather than as part of a collective strategy. Just as we planned, Voss said. Dravari tactics rely on superior coordination. Without it, they're just individual ships with decent technology we've now surpassed. After intense fighting, Aria detected unusual movement from the remaining Dravari capital ships. They appear to be retreating. Rylet reported an incoming transmission in human standard language. On screen, a Dravari appeared, its compound eyes shifting colors in agitation. Human command, we recognize combat superiority, request cessation of hostilities, will withdraw from human space. They're surrendering? Keahi asked incredulously. No, Voss corrected. They're regrouping. This is a tactical retreat. She opened a channel and faced the Dravari. Your attack on our colonies was unprovoked genocide. Withdrawal is not an option. We demand complete surrender and reparations for your crimes against our people. The Dravari's eyes pulsed rapidly. Impossible. Surrender not in protocol. We'll cease aggression. Not for the 2 million dead humans, Voss replied coldly. You have 1 hour to transmit your unconditional surrender, or we continue our attack, including deployment of our full arsenal against your remaining ships and any Dravari worlds within our reach. 57 minutes later, the Dravari transmitted their surrender. The final meeting took place on neutral ground, a Thelosian diplomatic station. The Dravari delegation entered with visible reluctance, their leader's eyes cycling through colors of distress. We comply with terms, it stated, unprecedented in Dravari history. Why did you attack us? Voss asked directly. What possible threat did peaceful colonies pose to your civilization? Not threat. Opportunity. All species follow pattern when confronted with superior force, submit or fight ineffectively. Territory acquisition standard procedure. You've done this before, Voss realized. To how many species? 17 conquered, 3 extinct through resistance, 2 absorbed through submission, 12 reduced to protectorate status. The alien's tone carried no remorse. Humans were to be 18th. Pattern indicated high probability of submission after demonstration of force. You miscalculated, Admiral Kagawa said coldly. Yes. The Dravari's eyes pulsed rapidly. Error in assessment. Humans possess trait not encountered in previous species. And what trait is that? Voss asked. Translation difficult. Concept is revenge innovation. Other species innovate for survival or cooperation. Humans innovate from vengeance. Created technologies in moments that should require generations. Unprecedented response. The Dravari continued. Analysis of conflict reveals fundamental error in expansion doctrine. Pattern-based conquest assumes all species follow same response patterns. Humans demonstrate this assumption is flawed. As part of the agreement, Voss demanded one additional term. The site of New Horizon colony will be declared a permanent memorial zone. No ship from any species may enter that system without explicit human permission. The Dravari accepted. After the treaty signing, Arya approached Voss. The Dravari are exhibiting signs of genuine restructuring in their hierarchical thinking. This encounter has fundamentally altered their species' operational paradigm. Meaning? We haven't just defeated them militarily, we've forced them to evolve. The journey back to Earth was subdued. Victory celebrations felt hollow against the backdrop of losses that could never be recovered. Admiral Kagawa met Voss as she disembarked. The Security Council is offering you a promotion, Fleet Admiral, with oversight of our new Advanced Defense Initiative. Voss hesitated. With respect, sir, I need some time to process everything, to visit New Horizon and pay my respects. Take all the time you need. But know this. What you accomplished has changed humanity's place in the galaxy forever. Every spacefaring species now knows that humans aren't just another conquest waiting to happen. They thought we were predictable, Voss said, that we'd follow the same script every other species had followed when attacked. Instead, we rewrote the whole damn play, Kagawa replied with a grim smile. Later, alone in her quarters, Voss stared at the hologram of New Horizon, but now, rather than a reminder of loss, it felt like something else. A beginning, perhaps. They thought humanity wouldn't retaliate, she murmured. I wonder what else they're wrong about. Humanity had faced its first true interstellar crisis and emerged not just surviving but transformed. The Dravari had unwittingly awakened something that might have remained dormant for centuries. The knowledge that when pushed to the edge of extinction, humanity didn't just fight back. They changed the rules of the game entirely. As Voss finally drifted into exhausted sleep, her last thought was not of vengeance or loss or victory. It was a question posed to the universe at large. What will we become next?